Our regularly scheduled board meeting to order. And do I have you, Ms. Borgman? On? Okay, yeah, okay, sorry. Just want to make sure.
Katie's on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Not the same without the kiddos.
Nope. We'll count down. How many more meetings till we get them back? Okay. So I need a motion to adopt the agenda if there are no changes. Great. Second?
Second, Humphrey.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries, and I think it's 6-0. Okay. Okay, so we have 3 different minutes, and if there are no changes there, that'd be items 1.4, 5, and 6. If I could get a motion to 1.04, 1.05.
Move approval 1.04
Thank
to
you.
1.06.
Thank you.
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right, our communications items begins with our superintendent report. Dr. Schumacher, item 2.01.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Sinclair. We have several wonderful announcements to make this evening as Shelley's pulling up that presentation. Very good. All right, several Shawnee Mission School District students had tremendous success at the State Skills USA competition. Gabe Gast, a senior from Shawnee Mission Northwest High School, won gold in the cabinetry competition. Lucy Hutton, Shawnee Mission South High School senior. Ben Imhoff, Shawnee Mission South senior. And Jacob Edson, Shawnee Mission North High School senior, took first, second, and third place, respectively, in culinary arts. Addie Monthly, Shawnee Mission South junior, earned first place, and Sawyer Wakes, a Shawnee Mission South sophomore, earned second place in restaurant service. Kim Morales, Shawnee Mission East High School junior, earned first place, and Javi Martinez Jimenez, Shawnee Mission South junior, earned second place in baking and pastry. Skills USA is a workforce development organization for students which empowers them to become skilled professionals, career-ready learners, and responsible community members. Huge congratulations to these students. The National PTA recognized several Shawnee Mission School District students for their 24-25 Reflections art submissions. Maya Clark, a Shawnee Mission South freshman, received an Award of Excellence in Photography for the artwork Refracted. Grace Beecher, a Santa Fe Trail Elementary 4th grader, earned an Award of Merit for her film Snowball's Story. Grace Hibbs, Prairie Elementary School 6th grader, received an Award of Merit for a visual art submission, and Nixon Katzenmeyer, Krista McAuliffe Elementary 6th grader, earned an Award of Merit for photography. Reflections is a nationally acclaimed student recognition program that encourages student creativity. They submit artworks based on an annual theme in a variety of mediums. Congratulations to all of these national honorees, their teachers, and their families. Thank you also to SMAC PTA and everyone who serves PTA and Shawnee Mission for providing these opportunities to students. All right, we've got a lot of sports wrap up, so bear with me. Shawnee Mission had a phenomenal spring athletic season, and we wanted to share several highlights. In boys golf, Shawnee Mission East was named the state champion, their second title in 3 years. Stuart Bulware, Shawnee Mission East sophomore, earned third place. And in boys tennis, Shawnee Mission East was the state runner-up. Senior Jake Hansen and Christopher Long, sophomore from Shawnee Mission East, took second place in doubles. Ryder Heaven, junior, and Carson Moyer, sophomore, both from Shawnee Mission South, took third place in doubles. Maybe a round of applause? Maybe take a break and a round of applause. We should do that more often, a little break. All right, in girls swim, Shawnee Mission East was the state runner-up. Shawnee Mission East also had a third place finish in the 200-yard medley relay, 200-yard freestyle relay, and the 400-yard 400-yard freestyle relay. Emmy Barrett, Shawnee Mission East Senior, was state runner-up in the 100-yard backstroke. Shawnee Mission Northwest was state runner-up in the 200-yard freestyle relay. Thea Bosart, Shawnee Mission Northwest sophomore, was state champion in the 100-yard butterfly. And Sophia Ellison, Shawnee Mission Northwest junior, earned third place in the 100-yard backstroke. Round of applause, right? Yeah. Most recently was baseball. This is a quick line. Shawnee Mission West High School was state runner-up. Round of applause for Shawnee Mission West, the Vikings. Great run to the state championship game for them. A lot of success in track. So in track, Charlotte Hardy, Shawnee Mission East sophomore, was state champion in the 3,200-meter run. And Paige Stanfield, Shawnee Mission East junior, was state champion in javelin. Shawnee Mission North junior, Courtney Walton, was state runner-up in the 300-meter hurdles. Shawnee Mission Northwest senior, Braden Klon, was state runner-up in the 800-meter run. For Shawnee Mission South, junior Amelia Hansen was state champion in pole vault. Max Larson, Shawnee Mission South senior, earned state titles in the 1,600-meter run and the 3,200-meter run. That's impressive. Michael Mosier, Shawnee Mission South senior, was state runner-up in discus and shot put. And Shawnee Mission West senior, Laura Edel, earned third place in shot put. Another round of applause, right? All around the district, that's right. Middle school also had a great season of boys and girls soccer. They did not hold a tournament, but we congratulate them on an outstanding season. Every time we provide this overview of spring sports, we know there were also many personal and team records and accomplishments. We had more than 2,600 students in middle and high school participate in spring athletics this season. Congratulations to all of the coaches and students for being all in as they took part in these competitions. Great success. Shawnee Mission shined at the National Catholic Forensics League National Tournament held in Chicago. Lucy Pace and Sophia Leonard from Shawnee Mission East earned first place in policy form debate. Esra June and Henry Martin from Shawnee Mission South earned second in the same category. And Shawnee Mission East was recognized with the Eleanor Wright Award for Excellence in Debate. Congratulations to all of these students and their coach, Trey Witt. Yep, round of applause, yeah. Maybe we should start that, round of applause after each one, yeah. We are proud to have wrapped up a second season of the Shawnee Mission School District podcast, Shawnee Mission Mic'd Up. I invite you to check out our most recent episodes. Episode 38 focused on how new resources are making learning about math more hands-on, collaborative, and engaging. Episode 39 focused on the North Relays. They've been a part of the Shawnee Mission for more than 70 years, and we talked about how this event brings the whole community together. And then our final episode of the season featured Linda James, who retired after 42 years as a teacher in the Shawnee Mission School District, as well as 2 graduating students from Shawnee Mission East. It was a really fun episode. We'll include a link in the emailed recap so anyone can listen, download, or subscribe. We're excited to come back in the new school year with exciting episodes. And then finally, just want to take a moment to congratulate everyone on an incredible 24-25 school year. Since our last meeting, we celebrated the commencement for nearly 2,000 high school students. We also celebrated numerous recognitions and advancement ceremonies for all of our students. I am so proud of our community, our staff, our families, and our students for all that they've accomplished this year. Thank everyone for continuing to show up as one Shawnee Mission and for being all in. With that, concludes my superintendent's report.
All right, thank you very much. Good year.
Great year.
Okay, so we are now on to board report. Mr. Garcia,
Thank you.
can you do this on your?
Excuse me. On behalf of the Shawnee Mission Education Foundation, I just wanted to share a couple things that were going on with them. Their amazing, wonderful program that they have, Leadership Shawnee Mission, where they bring in juniors and seniors from across each of our 6 high schools in Shawnee Mission. They come here, they're in their second week of leadership development, gaining so much knowledge to take back to their schools, back to their buildings. Such important work, but just wanted to note all the great work that the Shawnee Mission Education Foundation is doing in that regard. So second week, and they have a few more to go. So it's going to be a great summer with those kiddos, a part of Leadership Shawnee Mission. Nothing on behalf of the Shawnee Mission SMAC PTA.
Okay, great.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Ms. Borgman, I'm going to turn your mic on. I believe you were just with the KASB Board of Directors recently.
Hi, good evening. Yes, I was in Topeka on Saturday for the KASB Vice President Board of Directors, and a lot around the legislative session, and specifically wanted to ask you all to put something on your calendars for September 3rd. It is a legislative listening tour. One will be held around the lunchtime, and the other will be held early evening. I will get you, once it's kind of a draft at this point, but I anticipate that it'll be set in stone here shortly. And so we are each being asked to include business leaders in our respective communities to attend. And so that way we can just, bring everybody alongside with us to educate them on public education in the state of Kansas. So the next meeting that we are going to have is August 22nd, and that will be in combination with KASB legislative representatives. And so, Ms. Ousley, if you'd like to carpool, I'd love to go down to Topeka with you. But that is my update from KASB.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, are there any other board report, policy review committee, Ms. Ousley?
We met on May 27th and started discussing our policy with regards to transfers, specifically looking at good standing requirements and if we need to do any tweaks there, and then also looking at the policy as it relates to preferences given to siblings of students who are already at a building and or employees, students who already have family members at a building. And so the administrative team is getting us some additional information, and we will meet again, I believe, here in the 16th. So a couple more weeks. No, a week. Very soon. Very, very soon, Dr. Sinclair. Thank you.
All right. Okay, anything else? Okay. All right, thank you for those reports. Appreciate the updates. Okay. All right, that brings us to our discussion items, I believe. Yes, okay. So discussion item 3.01 is safety and security program update. Dr. Schumacher.
Yeah, I'm going to call up Chief Mark Schmidt and Officer Philip Laughlin, who present our annual district safety and security program update. Welcome, gentlemen.
Board members, Dr. Schumacher, Dr. Stubblefield, we appreciate being here tonight. I want to emphasize the great relationship we have with Dr. Schumacher and Dr. Stubblefield. They have been very supportive of what we do. We've had some great team work done over the year, and we'll talk just for a couple of seconds about some of that. You want to? Are you doing the? Okay. Yeah, the police department consists of SROs, DROs, SROs, DROs, CSOs, and a communications dispatcher. All of those people are highly trained in what we do. We have very little turnover. We are fortunate that when officers come to work with us, normally from previous careers of 25 years or more, we're getting the best of the best. And we're very proud of the work that they do. Our role is more protect the perimeters, protect our kids, and make our staff feel comfortable, because I don't think you learn if you don't feel safe. So we really emphasize that and become friends as many as we can. I think if I go to any of our buildings and stand in the hall during the break, the DRO can probably name 2/3 of the kids as they walk by, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a positive contact that they know so many kids, and they do that by being at lunch with them, and they stop by their office. If you go by the buildings, I know you do, you see the kids in the office with the officers. They're they're having a good time, and they're getting to know each other, knowing their families. So that's always a big thing for us. We're not administrators. We try not to be involved in that. We are there to mentor, and on the rare occasion we truly have to put our police hat on, we're there to investigate any criminal activity that may have taken place on school property. So that's our main roles. The SRO does pretty much the same thing. It's just nice to have that outside resource that we work very closely with, and I keep Dr. Stubblefield apprised of that I meet with command staff from across the district on a regular basis. We all communicate well. We know what's going on with our staff, and we're both following the same, or all of us are following the same idea behind the program. Training, I just put a few of the training things in. We're required to have a minimum of 40 hours. They select some. I select a majority of them. But this year we reported 1,112 hours of training. Everybody exceeded the training requirements. Officer Laughlin and another officer just came back from the State Academy where there's testing a new SRO training certification. Officer Laughlin was asked to be a reviewer. He was given the task of making sure the program was touching all bases. We're always proud of when we're asked to go participate in new things taking place. The state realizes, I think, hey, call Shawnee Mission, because they're always good about helping us out and everything. And you know, I mentioned the NASRO, the Juvenile Officers Association. Officer Laughlin's the president this year of the Kansas Juvenile Officers Association, so he spends a lot of the summer about the state working with other school resource officers, and this year he's the president of that, and we're very proud of that. I think you can kind of take a look. It's just an example where we make sure every officer is certified in CIT matters, which is a crisis intervention training program. Every officer is certified in that before or right after they come to work here. Again, I mentioned we haven't had to hire a new officer for years, other than a position thankfully just created this year by Dr. Schumacher, Dr. Stubblefield. We have a full-time elementary officer, and that's her role, is to be in the elementary schools every day. In the past, we've had to kind of pull officers out of the big buildings to go to the smaller buildings. We don't have to do that anymore. It's a great added resource that we received this year. So, probably see us at a lot of these events. We do a lot of beyond the academic hours. We're every sporting event, except wrestling and baseball. If there's a sporting event, somebody's there to help. And we do the proms and we do the dances. I think last year, this year was 250 events that we had officers present at during the last school year. So if we're needed, we're there. Well, we try to be available, but a lot of hours spent in things that don't participate during the curricular hours of school. I'm going to let Officer Laughlin go over the technology. The younger guys, they know this technology. And Philip does a great job at it. And I think Mr. Garcia is going to give you a hard time about it, but we maintain the radios. We maintain Raptor. We're in a core group that strategic. I'd like Dr. Stubblefield to speak about that if we need to too. Great tool just came on board this year. It's had hundreds of uses already for in building. It's working. It's great. It's working, and we're very proud. We were fortunate enough that you approved that expenditure for us, and this core team of IT, Dr. Stubblefield, and the police, and Tyler Club, and those people have made it go to work really quick, and we couldn't be happier. There's a lot of new technology out there every day, and we try to look at a lot that's coming across. We just did one Dr. Stubblefield had set up recently, so there's new stuff coming online all the time, and it comes through in a flash. But I assure you, if there's technology we need, you've been very, very generous and helped us support those ideas. So I'll let Philip talk about technologies, the biggest thing I say is our team cares about the kids. And that's why they stay here, and that's why we come to work every day. We don't hire rookies that don't have a clue what we're doing, and no offense to them, but by the time the officer gets to us, they've passed that high mountaintop where they feel like they have to be putting people in jail. We arrested 2 people this year. One of them was a state warrant we had no credit on. The other one was a situation that the statute required an arrest be made. 2. It's unheard of. And we got good kids. I can't take all the credit for that by any means. But, we have good administrators and we have good kids, and that's what makes it all worthwhile. That's why this is my 46th year in law enforcement, and that's why I still get up and enjoy coming to work every day, because the environment that we're in keeps me young. So I'll let Philip do some technology.
Thanks, Chief. We certainly rely on our strategic plan, 6.2.1 for the cycle 2, to make sure that we are doing our technology and our best practices, continually looking at those for the health and safety of our staff and students and our patrons. A couple of quick things I would highlight for technology. Centegix, the wearable panic button that we issued out to all employees and staff, went officially live on April 21st. And I would like to give a shout out to the core team for the district that managed that and met many, many times to put that all together. Dr. Schumacher, Dr. Stubblefield, David Smith, you and your communications staff, Drew Lane, Shannon Heffron, and the ICT team, Tyler Clubb, Mike Wood, and the O&M team, and then Chief Schmidt and the police team. It was a very great collaborative effort for something that has really paid dividends already. In the 5 weeks, 5 school weeks that has taken place since we went live with it, staff have activated their alerts 327 times, meaning that they needed some assistance from the on-site resources, from the admin, from the nurse, from the social worker, from the officer, or what have you, whether it was a medical emergency or a behavior situation or possibly an altercation. Those people notified quickly and responded quickly to the situation, and I think that limited data for that 5 weeks just shows that it's really improved the safety and security for our students, staff, and our visitors to our buildings. So that was a big project that, again, we thank the board for putting that forward. Last summer when we were here, we talked about our emergency operations plan, and like all good plans, sometimes they need a little refresh and revisit. So over the summer, Chief Schmidt and I, we consulted with an outside group here in town, and we went through and revised and updated our emergency operations plan for the district. That was a big project to do, but we were able to complete it in time before school started. When the administrators came back, we were able to train them on the new emergency operations plan and procedures. It involved the plan being available digitally as well as on cell phones and readily accessible for when we need a plan, we can refer to it quite quickly. Some of the other technology, the district police oversee and administers our Raptor technologies, which screens visitors to our buildings and keeps track of who's in and out. About 71,000 were screened. Our bully incident reporting system, about 2,500 cameras that are monitored and recorded each day in our district. Of course, our two-way radios and communications that allow our admin and officers and nurse and staff to be in contact with any incident on campus, as well as our weather consulting service that we use when the weather's not very good here in Kansas City. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the chief for final remarks and any questions.
I think I just want to close with, we're always looking forward at new technology, as we talked about. We're looking at a couple of products right now that it's just in its infancy, but we always want to do better at what we do. And as the slideshow says, we want to be a resource to the parents, and we want to be a resource to the children, and a resource to the staff, and we do that on a daily basis. The officers are there to help. they're there to tell the administrator, hey, I'm familiar with this family, or I know this family personally, and if you, I can help you. The only way to do that is become involved in your buildings and know your kids, and we do that, and we pride ourselves in how we do that. We're looking ahead. There's always new stuff to do, and we'll probably be back here at some point and say, hey, we've got a new thing we want to show you, or a new idea we want to get with Dr. Schumacher and Dr. Stubblefield. I can't emphasize enough how professional our team is. We're the only team that's wearing a soft uniform, except for special dress occasions. You probably saw us at the graduations in our full blues, but this lighter approach they love it, and we like that too. It's more comforting when the parents come in, or when the kids stop by to get a piece of candy, which they're very good at. So those are always things. That's why we're always looking ahead. This was a change a few years ago. It's been very positive. So please let me know if you have some questions. We are happy to answer them. If we've missed
I just want to thank Chief and Officer Laughlin. He's correct that if you go out into our buildings, our SROs, our DROs have wonderful relationships with our kids, with their staff, and it starts with the leadership and the tone that you guys set. So thank you. You also want to throw it to Dr. Stubblefield if you have any comments as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, hopefully what came across today was, with Chief and Officer Laughlin, just the amount of collaboration that's involved, their positive interactions. Really set the tone, like Dr. Schumacher said, that they're just really collaborative with our building administrators. So I hope your takeaway is, one, positive relationships that are being built across the district. Two, just the high level of training that our officers undergo each and every year. And that third piece is really that visibility piece, high visibility, where our officers are reassuring and not intimidating. And so, again, when our students and staff feel safe and comfortable in their learning spaces, we know that learning increases. So thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much for your leadership, not only in the district, but across the state, as you mentioned, in reviewing other opportunities for ways to train SROs, those kinds of things, and the professional organizations. We really appreciate that. I'm going to look for questions. Yes, Mr. Garcia.
I wasn't going to grill you. Just joking.
Okay.
Thank you both for the work that you do. Thank you to your team for doing what you all do. I wanted to quickly mention that I was at Old Shawnee Days this weekend. Shawnee Police was there. They had their own little booth. And I saw one of our officers, Officer Pennington, over at Hawker Grove. She was there with Shawnee, and the amount of kids that were there to just high-five her because they knew her from school reminded me of those relationships that our students have with our SROs and everybody in the mix out and about. It was just great to see. It was a good reminder of one Shawnee mission out in the community, seeing that. So I love witnessing that. Quick question about our Centegics. Did I say that right? Centegics. Okay, thank you. People call it Life Alert, which I know it is not that, so forgive me. The kids call it
Crisis Alert.
The kids say, "Oh, the Life Alert." I'm like, that's not what that is. But very actually kind of similar to that, I have a question about the use of that when it comes to students, and I don't think we've ever talked about it before. Maybe nobody's asked, but as I've talked with a few teachers, I don't even know if it was jokingly or not, but what happens if a teacher does, let's say, passes out in class or has an incident? Students are able to use that or no? I mean, I can't imagine students have training for this, but I just wanted to understand how, in the cases like that, God forbid, we can address that or ensure that students are capable of maybe using it too. I don't know. But what's the protocol there? Because
Yeah, that's a great question. Our students were not trained with the Crisis Alert badge. However, the simplicity of it is, our teachers have conversations with kids. If I press this 3 times, people from the building will come. If I press it 8 times, people from outside the building will come for help. So it's very simple. And if we did have an emergency where a teacher was having a medical issue or a concern, or their badge may not be on them, that they would know how to react to that.
We actually heard a story from a neighboring school district
Yeah.
in which one of their staff members had a heart attack on an athletic field, and the kids were aware enough to press the buttons, and it saved their life. So
That's
your
great to
point,
hear, because
yeah.
I'm thinking of the littles, and if we have a teacher that's prone to whatever it might be, maybe it's worth creating some laminated flyers in each room that say 3 times, button 8 times. I don't know. But just wanted to make sure that was clear. I hope that we never have to experience that, but would love for our students to be aware of how this can be beneficial to everybody. So, but again, thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question, but actually, I don't think it's for the chief and Officer Laughlin. It might just be for Dr. Stubblefield. On this same topic, while we're on it, with regards to training of the students potentially, do we give the kids training on what to do, like if they're in the bathroom, should something happen? I know we had one recently where there was a false alert at Northwest, and so it was just rolled out in the last 5 or 6 weeks of school, and there was an accidental false alert where the lights went and it was the alert said that there was an intruder, and so I think there was a different level of stress with the false alert than there would potentially have been with a drill, because with the drills, the kids know it's a drill. And they haven't necessarily learned the differences in the different types of alerts that it provides. But for that one, I think it did cause some anxiety for some students.
Yeah.
And then I know of one student who was in the bathroom by themselves when that went off, and that caused significant anxiety there. So I was just curious what our communication strategy was with the students on how to manage both the alerts when they go off and then in cases of false alerts, that sort of thing.
Yeah, with the false alerts, well, if it will say it's a drill. If it's a drill will
Right.
come over
It
the
says
intercom.
drill, but
It
this
will
was
say
a-
drill.
this was a
So if it's
false alert, not a
yeah,
drill.
Right.
Yeah.
If it's a false alert, then what we're doing is having our administrators get to as many students as possible and then come over to the intercom and say, this was a false alarm.
Mm-hmm.
So that could help ease some of that angst that took
Mm-hmm.
place, and then just have that communication come through teachers and administrators.
Yeah. I know from our end, it seems like just a little blip too, because from where we get the alert to where we get an all clear seems really short, but for the random kid
Yep.
by themselves, it does not perhaps feel very short. So not that
Yeah.
that's anybody's, it's just a question that popped into my mind with regards to what we're communicating to them and how to work it, just because it's so different than what
Yeah.
our previous practice was, where that information came over an intercom as opposed to just the robot voice. So it's like an immediate, you're on notice sort of thing.
Yeah, I would say that ongoing training that we have with our students when we are doing drills, that piece comes, that conversation occurs as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question. I'm looking to see. The emergency operation plans, I think Chief, or I can't remember which one of you mentioned, there might have been a little bit of updating. Was that more like reconciliation of current practice to what's written, like the integration of the Syntegic tool, or were there some changes made with the leadership team on how we're, more substantive kind of changes, I guess?
When we went through the emergency operations plan, we did some consolidating. I think a lot of organizations have found that when you have an emergency operations plan that's hundreds of pages long, it's going to be very difficult to find what you need in a hurry. So we were very intentional about making sure the information was up to date with best practices, as well as making it easily attainable and findable, and something that you could remember. Any of our emergencies or incidents, whether they be people-induced or weather-induced, would be remaining in the building or going into a code red situation or evacuating. So we've tried to focus on those 3 things to make it as simple as possible to address all the emergencies that we could think of.
And it's all consolidated into one location. It's not a long read document, it's bullet points. We have a fire emergency, hit the phone, look, this is what we need to come to.
So kind of, it was more focused on clarification of the plan, user friendliness of the document. Yeah.
Very useful. It is, we didn't create anything new.
Okay.
We just consolidated it and put it into 5 or 6 or 7 bullet points to make it readily usable.
Great.
And the big
Thank you.
lift was making it digital as well. And so
Yeah,
if you
app.
guys can see it on your district devices, My ELP. And so that was a big lift.
And
last year.
there's an app that you can download for your
Right.
phone as well that has it.
And my charge to the team, and this I'm sure is on their radar, is annually we would need to review those emergency response plans just to make sure that it is updated, because we do have another resource in strategics. And
We
so
just did an update to the plan by adding strategics here. That was the latest update.
I might want to just add one note that all of our classrooms and learning areas have a poster that's laminated that gives the teachers, the students, the substitute teachers, a very easy access of what they need to do with those 3 types of incidents.
Great.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. I think that brings us to our next discussion item, 3.02, the strategic plan annual update, portrait of a graduate.
yeah, I'm listed here, but really it's going to be Ms. Lewis and Dr. Neal who are going to take the lead on this. Dr. Neal, of course, heads this up for the district. She does a tremendous job pushing us forward with the strategic plan. And then Pam and her have both done a tremendous job on our portrait of a graduate. And so we're very excited to share this information with you. Ladies?
Thank you, Dr. Schumacher. Good evening. Ms. Lewis and I appreciate the opportunity to present an update on the implementation of our strategic plan and the exciting work that's been underway to reimagine the district's portrait of a graduate. Tonight, we will provide highlights from each strategic area, share next steps toward achieving our strategic objectives, and spotlight how our portrait of a graduate will be shaping learning experiences for every student. So, as you know, our strategic plan for 2024 to 2029 is going to guide us during that time frame, is built on a strong foundation of beliefs and parameters that guide every decision we make. We include this slide, and you see it in almost every presentation, reminding us visually of the interconnectedness of our mission, beliefs, parameters, and 6 key strategy areas. On this slide really encompasses, we have been doing a lot of work this year. It has been an amazing year. We continue to see strong engagement and action team work across all strategies, and this year, I want to share with the board, we worked on 33 action steps and 21 actively engaged teams of dedicated volunteers work toward our 6 strategic goal areas, and their contributions are shaping and will shape meaningful change. As we look to 2025-2026, our applications will open in July for additional members to join those action teams to ensure we have broad and diverse input. That remains central to the work and is so imperative. Community members can follow the progress of our strategic plan in between our board updates. We want to remind you of that. We have a strategic plan webpage, and on that you can locate our implementation charts, and those are updated quarterly. So as you're talking out in the community with your networks, we want you to encourage people to look for that announcement in July when we will open up that application process to engage some additional voices and individuals. We'll have more internal and external teams that we will need to have begin their work next year, while many of the teams will be continuing, and we'll probably need to add some voices there as well, because as you know, things change in people's lives, so sometimes those ebb and flow a little bit as well. All right, some of our updates. So our facilities team, along with external partners, have been diligently working on some ongoing audits and reviews to ensure safe and healthy environments, which directly inform our building and maintenance schedules and future planning. In fact, you heard Officer Laughlin reference this earlier in his presentation. And if we could go to the next update, or next slide, in the year ahead, we have some very exciting work ahead. We'll be exploring a potential bond proposal, and more information in that proposed recommendation you can expect to be coming sometime around Q3 of next school year. So that will be exciting. We, as you know, are wrapping up our current bond, and we'll be looking ahead to the future and doing that work as part of this planning cycle. Our strategy 5, is the important one that was added around mental health, and it continues to be a high priority. As you look at the slides moving forward, sometimes you'll see a green check. That means that we've received an actual recommendation from that action team. Sometimes you may see a little blue check. That means that a recommendation may be submitted but hasn't yet been reviewed or is coming shortly. So just a hint when you're seeing those action steps, what that means. So, as I mentioned, a recommendation to add elementary counseling staff has been submitted straight out of one of those action teams, and that will now be looked at as part of the 2025-2026 budget planning process. We're also working to create a digital resource hub to connect families and educators with community well-being supports. As you may recall, it was central in this particular planning cycle that the community, we really expanded our strategic planning work to serve the community as well as what's happening in our schools. Action Team 521 and /523, they're working together on those combined items. They've conducted extensive research and surveys to help inform the development of a community resource hub, and we anticipate a recommendation on its format and creation. That's anticipated to come in Q1 of this next school year. Technology. Technology integration is advancing thanks to the work and creation this year of our instructional technology cadre. And also, as you know, the board adopted a personal device policy. Those were both established this year. We're now turning our attention to develop age-appropriate usage guidelines, refining data gathering systems to help us identify and inform staff and student technology needs, and determining an evidence-based framework for instructional technology to support all student needs. That work is underway and will be continuing. Next year, we will also begin work on supporting the appropriate and responsible integration of emerging technologies. So, for example, think AI, which we know is something that we are thinking about. And so that team will be working on that, and we anticipate that they will be submitting some guidance or some recommended ideas to consider early in this next 2025-2026 school year.
I'm excited for the progress and continued work of Strategy 3 people, as I was a part of that action team from the strategic plan, so it's exciting to see this work move forward. I want to highlight 2 action steps that are underway, 3.1.1 and then 3.1.3. And then 3.2.2, which has already moved forward with the development of the Superintendent's Classified Advisory Council, which met this year for the first meeting in December. So it was great to get our Classified Advisory Council going and engage in that collaboration and feedback from that team. Moving forward, the Classified Advisory Council will start at the beginning of the school year, providing additional opportunities for collaboration, and the work of Action Team 3.1.1 aligns with our district retention plan that we've been really working on over the course of the last few years. The team is focused on supporting our cooperating teachers, and cooperating teachers are staff members who mentor first-year teachers, and then also expanding on that and providing more ongoing support to teachers in years 1 through 5, as well as staff moving to new positions, possibly a new grade level, maybe from a classroom position to an interventionist position, so really providing that support as staff embark on new positions as well. And then Action Team 3.1.3 forwarded recommendations related to retention planning and developing a comprehensive evaluation process to provide consistent feedback and support to all staff. So excited for that work to move forward, and of course then tie in that work with our administrators. That team has recently been submitting that work, and that's going to be considered at the beginning of the next school year.
All right, that brings us to the strategy around belonging. The belonging strategy is crucial for fostering an inclusive and supportive environment for everyone in our district, and as you know, it's a strategy area our community has indicated is very important. This year's action teams have focused on peer mentorship, strengthening support groups for underrepresented staff and students, reviewing discipline practices, and improving district communications. These efforts will ensure every student and staff member feels seen, heard, and valued, and that our systems reflect that belief. Our discipline matrix and procedures have been updated to reflect the electronic device policy that was approved, with suggested language changes, some additional language changes to be finalized and forwarded in Q1 of 2025-2026. Additionally, our action teams are working on that important area around streamlining communications. And so that work this year has included looking at what some platforms might be that could improve and streamline those communications. Also looking at making sure it's accessible and available to all. And we anticipate that they will be forwarding their report and recommendations in Q1 of 2025-2026.
As you can tell from this next slide, much work has begun on Strategy 1, learning, which of course is the heart of our strategic plan and the work that we do every day in our classrooms. With action teams really honing in on focusing on real-world learning opportunities, college and career readiness, and grading practices, I want to highlight 1.2.1, which is embedding interpersonal skills within all district curriculum maps to guarantee their use in daily instruction and commit to providing teacher professional learning on the implementation of interpersonal skills into lesson design. So what the focus is really being intentional about identifying impersonal skills and defining the skills. That's really the first step in our integration of explicitly teaching the skills and embedding them into our curriculum. So it happens every single day. On Action Team 1.3.1, which is the focus on increasing our pre-K sites, which we've talked about, based on facility capacity and district possibilities to provide equitable access to early interventions and foundational learning through a braided funding enrollment process. We're really excited for this expansion as we've seen firsthand the impact of learning and early intervention with our youngest learners. Highlights and next steps for the learning strategy include the recommendation for the new Early Childhood Center and 2 new pre-K elementary sites. Those will be at Pawnee and Tomahawk this school year. These actions will have a great impact on pre-K across the district. Dr. Dennis is leading an action team 1.2.3 with grading practices. The team's connecting this work with the research based on Marzano's high reliability framework. We will also, as a learning team, be building on that with a book study with our administrators this school year. And then research, discussion, and input has been a part of the action team, reviewing our middle school model and expanding exposure and engagement in real-world learning and careers. And also the finalized definition of our interpersonal skills and that action team, then that will be an integral part of our Portrait of a Graduate. So the Portrait of a Graduate, as we kind of connect into that work, is our North Star. That's how we really, when we talk about the Portrait of a Graduate, those are the 2 words that come to mind. It's our North Star, and it's the expectation we have for our students walking across the stage, earning that Shawnee Mission diploma to ensure they have the skills to be college and career ready. Now, when we think about a Portrait of a Graduate, we of course picture our high school seniors and all of those graduation ceremonies we just took place at all of our high schools, and these seniors being ready for that next step beyond Shawnee Mission. But the Portrait of a Graduate Reimagined, it's intentional, and it's a commitment that this work is pre-K-12. And we began teaching and developing these skills from the very beginning. So when we talk about the history of a Portrait of a Graduate, Our first portrait of a graduate was developed in 2019 in conjunction with the work that was beginning with Real World Learning and the Kauffman Foundation, and also with the strategic plan at that time. And this served as a good initial focus and was utilized primarily internally. And then the portrait of a graduate was revisited with the new strategic plan to ensure alignment that the portrait of a graduate is remaining current with current research and then input from our Shawnee Mission constituents. The reimagining of a portrait of a graduate was a year-long process. We really needed the work to have engagement and input through many lenses, and I'm really proud of the team and all of the participants that were a part of that work because that engagement was strong and that input was strong, and just really committed to the work and the collaborative conversation and continuing to come back and give feedback and then revise the work. So we garnered the engagement from various groups, and the activities and the conversation were very intentional. We brought in research, business partners, and we began identifying skills for students to not only be college and career ready, but life ready. We analyzed the glows and grows of our current portrait of a graduate, and we researched portrait of a graduate examples from districts across the country. Some of the feedback that we received as we worked through this process was that our 2019 portrait of a graduate had a lot of glows as a part of that, but one of the grows was that the team felt it lacked comprehensive information and understanding for those outside of education. So we knew that was one of our charges, was to be able to have the portrait of a graduate stand alone and for anyone to be able to read the introduction and be able to understand the portrait of a graduate, not just from outside of the district, but teachers, students, everyone to be able to have that understanding. Also, over the course of the past 5 years, many districts across the nation have developed portraits of a graduate as the work has continued to evolve, which again is why we had that opportunity as well, but it also gave us a lot of additional examples to look towards and also really evaluate those as well and compare those to the work that we were doing. Another focus area was that the team really discussed and was really focused on that the identified skills were observable and measurable. And so as we dive into the portrait of a graduate, I want you thinking about, are these skills observable? Can I see a student exemplifying these skills? And are they measurable that a student could receive feedback and be able to reflect on their progress towards these skills? So I'm going to jump back to the work of Action Team 1.2.1. This was led by Dr. Matt Anderson. And what I really want to focus on is the fact that as this team worked on identifying interpersonal skills that we want to explicitly define and teach our students, that team was working in fluidity with our real-world learning teams, our core team and our implementation team that was really an integral part of the portrait of a graduate. And so that team gave us information on what they were working on and kind of what they were identifying. We were sharing some of the different skills that we were identifying from our research and evaluating portrait of a graduate examples. And that just continued to be fluid. And I just was really proud of that work. It wasn't working in isolation. It was working together. So we had the input from the strategic plan action team as well as the input from everybody that was a part of the real world learning work. And so it was really a collaborative effort. And next steps with the action team 1.2.1 is that they have a recommendation that's been forwarded for review. And the recommendation includes timelines in connecting the interpersonal skills with curriculum maps and lesson design. So the key here is that it's not separate in a portrait of a graduate saying these are the interpersonal skills we want our students to have. It's a system and a framework that we are explicitly teaching those skills, and they are integrated into our lesson design. It really also ties nicely with our Character Strong resource, and so that's another opportunity to really teach those skills through that resource, pre-K through 12. Along tied in with that is the work of our Cornerstone cadre, and they will really be doing the heart of that work. And that Cornerstone cadre is made up of social workers and teachers and coordinators. So that's a team effort that will continue to move that work forward. And now, a little drum roll, please. And the new portrait of a graduate coming your way.
We didn't drum roll hard enough.
It's getting there. It's getting there.
Dramatic pause.
Yeah, I know. A little anticlimactic. I really wanted an actual, drum roll, but, kids aren't here and, All right.
I'm sure she's got to describe for us.
Yes, absolutely. I'm on slide. Yep. So as we said, the Portrait of a Graduate is our North Star. And so I want to notice that the skills we've identified, they're critical in preparing our students for the future. And it's not just a goal that our students will develop these skills, it's our commitment to ensuring it. How do we ensure it? We have to develop that framework, and we have to engage everyone pre-K through 12. Clarity is imperative, that common language, integrating the Portrait of a Graduate into our learning, and providing students opportunities for continued practice, reflection, and feedback. And so what I love about the new Portrait of a Graduate, and of course, shout out to Mandy Lavelle, I was so excited. I'm not going to lie, when she came by, after I had seen it, I literally grabbed her and hugged her, took her by surprise. I couldn't contain my excitement because it was this year-long work in this logo and this design, and I just love how it turned out because it was so many people working on it, and then Mandy was able to take that input from us and really capture that and work collaboratively with us. So if she was here, I would hug her again, and she's not a hugger, but I just so happy with the work and how it turned out, and just proud of the work of the team. So when we reimagined the Portrait of a Graduate, we really talk about also that it's pre-K-12, and we really engage the expertise of our curriculum cadre. So moving forward, that's who we'll really be leveraging as we move forward with the work, because that's how we're going to embed it in our curriculum maps. So again, the skills are observable and measurable. Be thinking that as we go through those. And we're really focused on increasing student understanding and ownership of a Portrait of a Graduate. Then also providing those engaging learning opportunities. And those are learning opportunities from across the classroom. Some of those are client-connected projects. Some of those are the work that we do through Character Strong, problem solving, thinking about all the different learning opportunities we can to develop these skills. And then coming forward, we'll also be working towards designing a Portrait of a Graduate rubric. And that way then students can reflect and set goals on their progress towards a Portrait of a Graduate. Teachers can provide feedback. And then that's ongoing as they continue to develop those skills pre-K through 12. Okay, so we're going to dive in and take a closer look at the Portrait of a Graduate. Again, that they are observable and actionable, giving us that opportunity to provide feedback. And so the first one, I am a skilled communicator when I communicate with purpose and intent in a variety of modes and formats through effective reading, writing, listening, and speaking skills. And I am a skilled communicator when I effectively express ideas with clarity, actively listen, and thoughtfully respond, considering the perspectives of others. And then you can see that visual representation. So Mandy did a great job. For every skill, there's also that visual representation that corresponds with that. In working with our communications team, really excited about this next slide. We're really focused in on, and it's a collaborative effort with leadership and learning, the real world learning teamwork, and communications on how do we make the Portrait of a Graduate come alive, that people see what this is all about and what that learning looks like in our classrooms and outside of our classrooms with our students. So this is an example of a vignette that we have, and I'm going to let Shelley go ahead and play this for us.
I'm Hallie, and I am a skilled communicator. Today I'm here for the business showcase with the Shawnee Mission School District Student Chamber of Commerce. I'm beyond excited that this is a thing that has been created for students like me and like upcoming entrepreneurs, I guess. There were 5 business owners that gave a pitch to a panel of judges, and then there were, I think, 3 prizes. I came prepared, of course. I've done tons of things like this, so I'm always nervous at the beginning, and then it kind of all comes together in the end. I think that it means, for me, that I get to hear feedback from people that I wouldn't usually, which means a lot because I can't always just be listening to what I want to do and what I think. And so I think just getting interactions with people and having to kind of work at that rate and think quickly has been super helpful, because that means when I go other places, I can take that with me.
Again, shout out to our communications team for putting that together. So then what you'll see in the future is continued video clips from pre-K through 12 that are going to align with the different skills from the Portrait of a Graduate. So you'll see, what does a skilled communicator look like? Yeah, I know it's going to be so fun. What does a skilled communicator look like at kindergarten, and what does a skilled communicator look like in high school? So really taking that glimpse into what the skills are. And I know it's worth showing again.
Absolutely. All right. Our next skill area is effective collaborator. I am an effective collaborator when I demonstrate the ability to work interdependently with diverse perspectives to promote learning and achieve common goals. I am an effective collaborator when I work successfully with others and demonstrate a willingness to receive feedback, make adjustments, and compromise to improve the end result. So the great thing about this is there are so many opportunities to work on building the skills of collaboration across all disciplines and all age levels in our district. So students can collaborate in a variety of classroom projects, applicable, of course it starts at early learning, all the way throughout school. And working on client-connected projects, for example, in high school, allows our students, again, to hone those collaborator skills. And the skill of collaboration was something that our corporate partners told us that it's so important that our future workforce have the ability to receive feedback and to make adjustments.
So while critical thinking lends itself to the content of math, really innovative and critical thinking is across all content areas. And so innovative and critical thinker, I'm an innovative and critical thinker when I am curious, open-minded, and ready to adapt to new knowledge and challenges. I'm an innovative and critical thinker when I exhibit the ability to reason, weigh evidence, think analytically, assess situations, and develop innovative solutions to solve problems and make complex decisions. And I'm an innovative and critical thinker when I take initiative, am willing to take risks, challenge convention, and persevere through failure. And when we review that third bullet, this was feedback from our business partners. Just very explicit about, as Dr. Neal said, you know, the feedback that they gave us wasn't just about, we need students to know how to do this. It was more, we need students to have these skills that we can continue to train them, they can continue to grow and learn from that, and be willing to take risks and not be afraid to fail and really persevere through some of those challenges. So it's going to be exciting to design learning around the innovative and critical thinking, and you'll see that a lot through some of our different entrepreneurship type learning, a lot of our collaborative projects and problem solving that we do. It's fantastic that our new iReady curriculum resource, as well as our CPM math resource at the high school level, really align with the collaboration and problem solving and critical thinking within math. So it's really going to be exciting to see these skills develop in our students.
All right, civic and global contributor. I am a civic and global contributor when I understand and participate in open dialogue regarding issues impacting my community and the world at large. When I demonstrate an empathetic understanding of diverse perspectives, cultural differences, and global concerns. And when I act responsibly, engage civically, and demonstrate financial literacy and digital citizenship. So, as we read through that, I think you can tie some great connections here to our work across the district in belonging, so encouraging our students to understand multiple perspectives, develop empathy. The work of our students across the district in community service efforts, that helps them develop those skills along with developing that sense of pride and having a true impact on their community. And I thought a great tie is to the Next Great Idea competition, where that's a great example of students who truly identify an issue that may be impacting their community or even more globally, and really having a real-world opportunity to innovate a solution, pitch that, and potentially begin furthering that work in a very authentic fashion.
And finally, resilient learner. I am a resilient learner when I recognize my personal strengths and areas of growth and challenge myself to reflect, adapt, and navigate adversity. When I choose a growth mindset to overcome obstacles and embrace challenges as opportunities. And when I hold myself accountable, fulfill my responsibilities, and show pride and integrity in all that I do. And again, this shined through from research that these are skills that we really need to teach and develop and give students the opportunity to have learning opportunities, that they have to work through obstacles and adapt and embrace those challenges. And when we had our corporate council, and then we had multiple roundtable discussions, every single roundtable, this came out of. Every single one of them. They were all separate, and this was consistent from every single group. And so this really reflects that input from research as well as our corporate council. So next steps for 25-26, really making this a part of every day, and everyone working together to reimagine the portrait of a graduate, and how we are very intentional with our work in developing these skills with our students. Also, along with 25-26 is a lot of work around real-world learning, and you know that that's a part of our strategic plan, and really expanding that work pre-K through 12. It's a key component of our Kauffman Foundation and our strategic planning with the Kauffman Foundation. Our emphasis at pre-K 6, as you can see, is around exploring learning outside of the classroom and exploring careers. And then in middle school, our focus is continuing that exploration of careers while also engaging our students in opportunities that give them opportunities that really engage them in understanding more about different careers. So that prepares them for the high school level, that we are really working towards giving them career experiences within their learning. And we're excited for this reimagined portrait of a graduate, really proud of the process that we went through, the teamwork and the input from so many different groups across Shawnee Mission. And we're just excited for this to be at the heart of our students' learning, and continue then to share that story with the community and what's happening in and outside of our classrooms. And if you have any questions, we're available.
If you don't mind, just, guys, just a wonderful thank you for all this work. This is really, really phenomenal. I need to be neutral on things, but we've done some great work this year. This may be some of my favorite. This is really, really positive. It's really at the nature of what we're about, right? I mean, this is what we're about, is providing real-world learning experiences for our kids, and this ensures that. It gives us a roadmap to tell us where we need to get to with our kids. The other piece, and I don't remember what slide it was, but after they had gone down the road of developing this, I challenged them, or we challenged each other with, well, how are we going to measure it? How are we going to actually know if we're graduating kids who have these skills? And so that piece where students can reflect and goal set, I think is huge, and where we're embedding it into our curriculum is also huge. Many districts have a portrait of a graduate where it just sits there, and it's not really something that they use. Our challenge is that we will use this, and it'll actually be something that our kids obtain. So great work, guys. Thank you. Sorry, I kind of rambled
No,
there.
no, it is really exciting. I'm going to look left.
I have,
Mr. Westbrook.
I would like to add with Dr. Schumacher, my congratulations to the group. This is just fantastic. And Dr. Schumacher just said he has to be neutral, but I know he's also a believer. He's not agnostic about this. And I'm a believer too. I really ask myself, it used to be that an employer would want to maybe look at a graduate's report card, but rarely did. You look for other qualities, and the qualities that you've outlined here, I think, make for a portrait that is a very appealing picture for an employer. It's a very appealing picture when I ask myself, does this describe somebody I would like to work with or work alongside in a work situation, or someone I would like to be my neighbor, or someone I'd like to be out at the Chiefs game or the Royals game as a fan, or something I'd like to be as someone I'd like to have as a citizen. And that is what this work is all about. We're creating citizens, we're creating people who have an ongoing desire to learn, to think critically, not because critical thinking is being contrary, but because critical thinking is knowing we've got jobs that will change and be eliminated. We've got careers that are going to change and be eliminated. Our kids have to be ready to adapt to that. And if we can meet these goals, we're going to have graduates we can be proud of. So you should be very proud of the work, not because it's lofty or inspiring, it is inspiring, but because it's precise. It's going to give you a chance to be accountable, and I can't wait to see those accountability measures. And I'm not just blowing smoke here. I know you will come up with accountability measures that will go on beyond what a grade card presents or what a graduation degree presents. This is really great work, and this is what Shawnee Mission is all about. So thank you for letting me go on and on and on. But this really creates enthusiasm from at least one board member, and I bet I've got a lot of energy with the rest of us here at the table. Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Garcia.
Thank you for the work. Thank you to everybody who's been a part of this. I'm extremely grateful. I don't mean to pontificate too much here, but it's a strong held belief of mine that the public education system is of utmost importance. The equalizer across this country, people are legally required to be in school for about 12 years, and what great timing just celebrating the graduations that we had this last week. Something that I always think about is how do we prepare our students for the future, whether that is the multitude of things that our kids are going into after graduation. And I only bring up that personal held belief because I think this resembles a lot of what I think about as those kids are crossing those stages. Something that I know folks in my generation always talk about, or at least joke about, and you brought it up in a couple points, and I wanted to specifically touch on them and ask a bit more. We always used to joke, I wish we learned more about financial literacy after we left high school, because, shoot, even in college, like there's some ways that you'll miss it if you're not in the right degree path, things of that nature. But I saw it in here, and it piqued my interest because I absolutely, completely agree that there's again, utmost significance to having our students who are not pursuing a four-year institution to understand some of the most basic quality of life experiences that add to the quality of life or drastically negate the quality of life, such as financial literacy. And I just wanted to ask if, I'm focusing on one thing now, but wondered if you could develop or tell me more about some of those goals and aims that we have. I understand there's probably some classes that our students are taking already in regard to that, but wondered if there was an opportunity here to do more or provide more and things of that nature.
That's a great question. And I think what I think is really powerful and what's been very intentional is how integrated all of our work is. And it's our teams working across different departments. And so the portrait of a graduate is our North Star. But then when you look at our program planning guides and you start to look at and review, which Dr. Dennis has already sent that out to administrators to get a jump start on. So we can really be looking at what are those courses that we have in place, what's the enrollment look like, do we need to get more students enrolled in those courses like you mentioned with the financial literacy, and then also what courses do we need to pursue. And so that's a part of also our long-range planning around our real-world learning as well, is the courses as well as programs that we offer.
Of course, because naturally, and I'm grateful to hear that, naturally, also we're experiencing in real time what digital citizenship looks like. We have long conversations about AI and things of that nature. So I understand we're continuing to not make things up. That's probably the wrong terminology to use there, but continuing to develop with the times, and what this looks like can also be developed as needed, I'm sure. But that was just a question I had about specifically that, but very grateful to see it even on here. I think about those kids and families who lack some of those experiences in the classroom, in high school in general, to address some of those significant needs for the future. So.
On another note, Mr. Garcia, Ellie from Marion Park, who was
Yeah.
our tour guide,
Yeah.
she'll be in an upcoming vignette.
Okay. Yeah, I was happy to hear you talk about that program, because immediately I thought, the first line says communicate with purpose and intent, or communicate with purpose. And as we were sitting in the kindergarten classroom of Mrs. Brooks,
That was amazing.
I recognized immediately, like, okay, well, let's start at the entry level to hopefully provide what we can for students as they walk across that stage. So thank you for this work, and I'm looking forward to hearing more and learning more and developing this onward for everybody. Thank you.
If I could just add real quick, I know, Mr. Garcia, you're just cherry picking financial literacy, but fortunately, it is a graduation requirement, financial literacy, that one piece, but you guys mentioned it as well. Our curriculum cadres will now dig in and make sure that these skills are embedded throughout the entire course catalog. So this is a good point.
Yeah, Ms. Humbury, and Ms. Borgman, please don't let me forget you. Just feel cough or jump in if I'm skipping over you. I apologize. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for putting this together. I think my question mostly revolves around, I'm having slight deja vu from like less than 4 years ago when the last Portrait of a Graduate came before our board. And I see a lot of similarity between the two. I see a little bit of difference between the two. But it makes me think about, we're kind of using phrases like roadmap and North Star. So like how it feels a little bit like it's easy to move away from the old one to some extent. And I guess I'm asking, how do we make it harder to move away from this one later? I want this to be a North Star, but I think that means acknowledging we're talking about kids in early learning. That means kids that start kindergarten this fall won't graduate till 2038. So how do we really make this come alive in the district? So in 4 years, we're not scrapping it and building another one.
So I wouldn't characterize what we've done here in the reimagination as scrapping anything. I think we've intentionally, you have to review. Time moves forward, things change. So tapping into that broader voice out there from our business partners, our corporate councils, our real-world learning counselors, our teachers, parents, community members, to hear from them that update. I don't think there's anything that's necessarily been left behind out of the first one. It's more that intentionality around, because we adopted it, we did bring it to the board, and we knew that we had a Portrait of a Graduate, but it was largely used internally for our purposes. So now it's really, when we asked people, like parents, community members, they didn't necessarily know that much about that Portrait of a Graduate. And when you read through it, that's the feedback we received. They kind of questioned, well, what does that exactly mean? Or what would that really look like? So that's where we really were intentional. And as I read through that again, I don't know if you were thinking that, but just creating those definitions, we worked so hard on really choosing each word and really thinking about those statements so that students can really articulate, whether they're really small or they're seniors in high school, that they can articulate how they can depict and how they can do these things. Parents, we also intend, so the next step is really building that a dedicated website and dedicated communication with our communication team partners that will include those vignettes, that will include that education out to our parents so they know and they can support and look for those things and ask about those at home, and also our community at large. They can be partners in our Portrait of a Graduate work, helping give opportunities, helping to look for that, be mentors, all those different things. And so it all really, I wouldn't look at it as stepping away. I'd look at it as building on, and we'll want to continue to do that because we want to continue to stay ahead and to keep fresh and to be sure that we are preparing those students that won't graduate for 12, 13 years down the road. But we're preparing them not necessarily with specific skills that could go away, but we're preparing them with that full palette that they can take with them and that can adapt to whatever the needs may be when they step out of school.
I think the balance is adapting and changing as we hear and learn new things, but not adapting and changing so much that our North Star is moving all over the sky all of the time, right?
Yeah, and I think what I enjoyed about what we kept coming back to is that it's pre-K through 12. And so when you think about what does a skilled communicator look like at kindergarten, right? And so think about kindergarten, and that's going to be a student that they are sharing maybe their show and tell, and they're having a clear voice, and they're looking at their audience, and they're able to give 3 descriptors about what they're sharing. That's what developing skilled communication looks like at kindergarten. So when we talk about a rubric, that's where we're at a kindergarten level. And then where are we, by the time we continue to move forward, we're looking at students doing client-connected projects and being able to have their presentations and explain the problem that they were assigned and the process they went through to then come to that solution that they developed as a team. So I think that's what makes it really exciting, is really identifying pre-K-12 as students develop the skills, they're continuing to build on those, and it's not just something that happens at high school.
I also think that it helps people at elementary, pre-K, early childhood, elementary, and middle really anchor in. We talk about it all the time. By the time that student gets there and is crossing the stage, just didn't happen when they're a senior. It's all of those precursor years, and so this really helps us anchor into that all the way through school.
I'm really excited to see to have the videos and vignettes as something that we can see and share, and as we're, talking to people throughout the community. So I want to just do a little active listening check. So when I think about the State Board of Education, the Education Funding Task Force has recently been talking about what is a high school diploma, what is the value of a high school diploma, what is the portrait of a graduate, what is it that we want kids to know and to be able to do. So those kinds of questions have been happening, I think, very recently in Kansas. And when I think about what we want kids to know, some will ask questions about, well, algebra doesn't really change, so what's new about algebra? Don't we always want kids to learn those basic algebraic concepts? So I think about what we want kids to know, but it's that what we want kids to be able to do. How do you apply that knowledge? And I really love, again, kind of just really digging into the clarification of what we want kids to be able to do, how we want them to apply that knowledge, whether it's, being a civic and global contributor or a skilled communicator. To me, that's an application of that knowledge, which tends to be a little bit more dynamic. And so there might be some fluctuations in that, but I
think that's a perfect summation. Yeah, I mean, there's clearly specific content knowledge that we ask our kids to learn and our teachers to teach. But within that content knowledge, we hope that they're attaining these skills, right? That's like the end goal out of learning that content-specific knowledge. So yes, I do think that's a great summation.
It's very exciting.
Yep.
Ms. Owsley.
I appreciate the presentation, and I'm thinking through critically in my mind what, the accountability measures look like to make sure we're getting it done. And I'm glad that there are experts in the room to come up with that, and that is not on me, because I see the value of it, and I think that we don't always clearly label some of these skills out loud. When you name it, you instinctually know this is a value of our community. This is what we value in graduates from high school or graduates from college or from the colleagues that we work with, that we feel like, sometimes you just work with someone who has a grasp of these leadership skills, and it's a benefit to have those people in your life. But what I think is really important about this is that public education is a public good. Like, we produce a public good, and that is critically thinking individuals who contribute civically and who contribute to their communities and who can produce for, everyone. And so frequently while we sit here, I think about the individual student and how we are equipping that student to be college and career ready. But part of this conversation here is actually more about, this is how this benefits our community. I mean, just not necessarily being selfish, but from the broader perspective. When I was attending Shawnee Mission long ago, before the internet, we had this huge reputation. If you graduated from Shawnee Mission at a national level, we were the tradition of excellence. Our reputation preceded us where we applied to school really almost anywhere. And this is a similar like calling card. If a student can put this on their CV, I graduated with these skill sets, not just the curriculum, not just the academics that are important, but with the ability to implement these things that are valuable to my society and to my community. And I think even more so in light of lots of things happening currently in the world, I suppose everyone always says that sort of thing. The value of this, I think, is on its face, clearly apparent. So all of that is to say how we actualize it and measure it, I think, would be the really critical piece here. I love all of it. Now I just want to make sure that we do what we need to do to keep us on track to implement it. And I don't know exactly what that looks like.
Well, and I think that's where the work of our curriculum cadres plays in, and that's when we really embed these skills into our standards. So teachers see that we are teaching these standards, and here's how they connect with different units that we are teaching, and here's how they can connect with this story in open court, or this project that we can do in science, or this field trip, but really making those connections throughout the curriculum map. So it's not the portrait of a graduate over here, and then my curriculum guide and planning lessons here. They're embedded together. And that's going to be the expertise of our curriculum cadres.
So do we get a report where that would be included? So that, because whenever we get our reports, we go through, like, this is how this ties back to our strategic plan. Yeah. So what report would we be looking to for that so that, like, we can put it in our mind, like, on our regular kind of calendar?
Yeah, I think it's when Dr. Dennis brings to you the course program of study. But I want to not gloss over what you just said and what many of you just said. This is where the real work begins. Like, there's been tremendous work that's taken place over the course of this year. Now is going to be the hard work of how are we actually going to identify whether or not these skills have been obtained by our kids. There's some models out there. I was actually at a superintendent certification thing, and that's where I think I texted Pam. It's like, how are we going to actually measure this? Because there's some districts who are trying to do this. I'm not saying this is where we're going to go, but like putting things on transcripts and things like that, maybe that's where we get. But of course, we will bring some of those recommendations and thoughts back to you.
I think
I believe that you will, too. I don't want to have all of
Sure.
what I just said to be like, I'm doubting that
No,
it's
no,
going to happen. I believe that it will. I just want to know where I'm supposed to key in to follow through on the.
It feels like it's like a promise to our community and our students, and I think the board member responsibility is to be like, we want to make sure we hold up
Yeah.
this promise. Like,
Yeah.
we're making a promise to families and parents about what kind of education we're providing, and we need to know that we're providing it. And some of these, it's not a transcript, it's not an ACT score. We have all these ways we get updates on these very easily quantifiable, but somewhat easily quantifiable things in education. But civic contributors and effective collaborators, that's a lot harder for us to know whether we're fulfilling our end of the bargain.
Right. Yeah. So again, we recognize that the work really begins now on how we're going to identify student attainment of these skills.
And would it be safe to say, too, of all the work that's been done over the years on curriculum mapping and really going back through the standards and aligning it with all the grade levels, is there's a really solid foundation, and updating our instructional resources so it aligns with all of those, that there's a really strong foundation now to start weaving in, like you've been doing for the Character Strong,
Right.
kind of weaving those pieces in.
Yeah, they mentioned many of the resources that are direct tie to this. So I don't want anyone to take away the idea that we're going to have to drastically redo our curriculum or resources or anything like that. We are doing this work. It's just intentionally making sure that we can point to, yes, if a kid does this, they will have proven this skill, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we name it, they can put it on their CV.
Yeah.
Like, I want the kids to be able to take credit for it, and I like to be able to brag about us. So I just want to know which data points I get to brag about.
Yeah, I think we're talking about, like, how do we measure this, right?
Yeah.
I think some of this will also be automatically, well, not automatically, but we'll be able to review this with our new graduation requirements, with the post-secondary assets that are going to be added, for kids, so that they know, so that we know these are these post-secondary assets students have attained. So I think that's one more measuring stick for us to utilize to kind of measure, our success with this.
That's a good point.
I have a question on that, maybe the note of efficacy, because I think we're talking a lot about the front end of building out this programmatic effort is ensuring that students are taking the right classes, that they could put it on their transcript. But again, I guess I'm going back to, we lose, maybe not lose track is the right word, but we lose track of a lot of these students after they walk across that stage. I'm interested in how we can better understand the efficacy of the program when they are no longer here. Now, I understand that that's a challenging thing to do because students go off and do wonderful things. We don't keep in touch. I know for myself, after I won my election to the seat, I sat down with a few North grads to just better understand their time because I was years away from them. So I just wanted to know, how their high school experience went, also their whole time in Shawnee Mission. But is there any understanding, or how do you believe, if you do believe, that there's an opportunity to better understand these individuals' experiences post-grad to bring back to something like this? I don't know if that's too much of an ideological thought to believe that we have the ability to really understand if this was helpful or not, because I would hate to do all the work just for students to come back and say, well, actually, never used that, or I'm hopeful that all of this is helpful to students when they are in college or in the career, in the service, and things of that nature. I just really want to know if it's something we've ever considered, and how we can bring some of that real world experiences that they're having back to the table to help better address the needs of our students who are still with us.
I don't think it's a bad thought. We do, there is data that's kept on post-graduation
Great.
success.
Yeah.
The only kids that we can't keep track of are ones who are in the military, just because we can't gather that information.
Yeah.
So honestly, it's not something that we've discussed on whether or not to kind of try to access that data, but it's worthy of a discussion, for sure.
Yeah. I know for me and my peers at Shawnee Mission North, and that's the only experience I could talk to, we were prepared for a diverse and changing world when we were 18, and we get to university, and that's where most people experience things of that nature. And how grateful am I I could write a book on how grateful I am. But it's just something that I talk about with my peers. We were work ready at a young, we all accredit our early successes to our time from 14 to age 18, right? So it's just interesting. So it's just something I always think about. I always like to believe that the impact that our high schools are having on our students' lives are going to treat them well their entire lives. But I don't know. Just a thought. I mean, big idea, but
I'm with you.
Just a
Jamie,
thought.
Jamie, 2 seconds, is that okay? Is the State Department of Education is looking at or working towards that kind of longitudinal database? Is that, I'm looking at you and
Yes.
Dr. Dennis. So connecting that post-secondary effectiveness and success?
Yes. Yes.
They're working on it. There's a long way to go to make it, I think, something that's actionable and meaningful, but they're working that direction.
Be powerful. Ms. Borgman.
Yeah, a couple things. First and foremost, thank you. What a great presentation. I hope that this is something that, if it's not already, will be placed on our website, because as much as we think these meetings are super important, we know that we miss quite a bit of our community when we talk about these things. And so I do think that these are some of the unique things that really make Shawnee Mission kind of a gold standard. And so would love to make sure that, our community, as they're perusing websites, can see the great work that we're doing. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, I know that in my professional space, we talk a ton about AI, and I know that Pam mentioned that a little bit, but I definitely hope that as we continue to use this portrait of a graduate as kind of our working draft, so to speak, we continue to really think about AI and how it's going to change, our workforce in, 3 to 5 years, and so many jobs being replaced by AI. And there was a recent study in the medical field, and something that one of the conclusions was, at the end of the day, you can't replace soft skills. And so I know that a lot of soft skills were mentioned in the Portrait of a Graduate, and would love to continually to see that intentionally mentioned, because as AI sort of takes over our workforce, and especially in numerous areas, I know that, one thing that AI cannot do is replicate soft skills. And so I think it's important for our community to know and understand that we recognize that, and we are being very intentional about that, and really connecting the dots for people.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for making that connection. So both Ms. Lewis and Dr. Neal mentioned AI. As Dr. Neal, Dr. Stubblefield, and I strategized for next year's strategic plan, we prioritized AI, and we're kicking that off right away. And so Dr. Jenny Collier, Doug Von Mosch, and is there anyone else? Drew Lane are leading up that team. And so there's going to be a priority placed on AI right away for next year.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. It's very exciting. Thank you for all
Great
this
job,
work.
guys.
All right. Our last discussion item, 3.03 legislative update. And Dr. Little, let me apologize for not pushing you up to the top of the discussion item. You've been a trooper hanging. I know. So thank you for being a part of the board meeting tonight.
No, by all means, don't apologize. That's what I'm here for, and I appreciated listening to this conversation. If I was smarter, I might be able to think of a way to connect the conversation you all just had with a group of people in Topeka putting together a new school finance formula. And literally the last meeting that they had, the chair and other people on the committee were saying, we need to make sure that a diploma from a Kansas high school has this value, has some value. And they're going through that same kind of conversation in terms of a funding formula. And it is one of those things that if I had the capacity to convey to some of the people in that group, it's not measured by a NAEP score or an assessment test. It is measured by a whole lot of other things that you just heard here. And that's part of what the challenge is going to be for this committee. Task forces, they put together a school finance formula. How do you steer the resources to help all different sizes of schools and all different kinds of students accomplish these goals? And it's incredibly hard, probably impossible to do perfectly, and because we always tweak the formula. So I jumped ahead of the lead here. Tonight I'm going to talk about where we are in the education task force. Excuse me. And there's a PowerPoint here, and I'll go through. We're 6 months into the task force, and they'll conclude their work at the end of the year. So this is going to be kind of a check-in here. On page 2, just briefly, when the session ended very early, just about 2 months ago, they're not going to come back until January unless strange things happen. This may be the year for strange things, but a couple of things that we are keeping an eye on and keeping the superintendent updated on is kind of what's going on in terms of federal policy, where the reconciliation budget bill is in the process that concludes funding for school vouchers, those kinds of things, the extent to which policy coming out of the Department of Education may turn block grant dollars down to the states to open up that flexibility. So there's a lot of those kind of things that are still in the process at the federal level. But I wanted to, was asked today to talk briefly about the task force. So on this third slide, number 3, the K-12 Education Task Force was created in a bill during the 2024 legislative session, and to address the fact that the current school finance formula expires on June 30th, 2027. And the bill created a 15-member task force who began meeting on the 31st of January. And the chair of the committee and leadership has stated repeatedly almost every time they've met that they intend to have a bill drafted at the end of this year, and the 2026 legislature will be looking at a new school finance formula, and they're working throughout that process. On slide number 5, there are the members of the task force and their appointing authorities. It is chaired by, on the committee are chairs of the House and Senate Education Committees, chairs of the House Education Budget Committee, State Board of Education has an appointment, large school district, small school district superintendent, and then there are non-voting members, including the Commissioner for Education, Children's Cabinet, Budget Director, and another KSDE designee. There are, to our benefit in some ways, a variety of Johnson County area members on this committee, which can be helpful as going down the road. The schedule on page 6 of the meetings that have taken place, they began meeting on the 25th, and they got a general overview over the formula. In February, they had a staff briefing that went over the components of all of the basic weightings. Of course, the legislative session's going on, so we're not taking too much time and digging too deeply in here. But, and then in March, there was a presentation on other states' formulas. They did regional ones around us, and then heard a couple of presentations from the National Commission on Schools, I believe it's called. And then in May, they started talking about special education, excess costs, interlocals, spent a chunk of time talking about special education. And they were then last week had talked about high enrollment, roll enrollment, transportation, bilingual. And I'm going to lay out going forward here, they're going to come back to at-risk. And I'll talk a bit more about at-risk and special education because they're kind of the focus of what the conversation is taking place. So they'll be back in July to talk about at-risk. They'll be back in August to talk about special education and spend all 2 days on both of those, at-risk, special education. And then they're going to have, obviously, 4 more months left. They're going to start digging into the process and working through things. So on slide number 7, I've tried to pull together what's probably about 50 hours of committee meetings and give you a sense of kind of where they are and what's going on. In general, these are a group of people who all want to address the formula, and there's some themes that are emerging through this that there is, in general, a belief being expressed by committee that after reviewing all of the components, there needs to be change in the school of finance formula, and at least from the leadership of the committee, that there are parts of the formula that are not satisfactory. So those of us that have had conversation, we talked about, let's just sunset it. That's not going to come out from this committee. There's going to be something that'll come out that will be making changes. They're focused on weightings. They're not really looking at the base, what that base calculation is, since we get into that kind of backwards through how much money we have, but they're really interested in weightings. They're looking at models for how to deal with weightings, and some of them are to move a weighting. Let's just take at-risk, which is currently generated by free and reduced lunch and distributed through a formula that school districts get, and we have the high density at risk, and we have all of these ways to distribute those dollars. And so they literally are beginning with an assumption, let's just take it all out and dump it into the base. And so they're getting presentations from legislative research department about, as they're going through each of these weightings and just saying, let's just add them to the base and see what that does to the base. Now, at risk, a redistribution of the $500+ million in at-risk dollars on the base is going to help some districts, is going to be incredibly detrimental to other districts. And I'm not saying that's what they're going to do, but they're looking at that. So they've had staff do that, and then they'll go through and they'll come up with some modified versions of weightings. And I'll look at the third bullet point here, and they did this on the ELL weighting this last week, where they said, all right, let's just spread what we're spending on ELL and don't tie it to kids. And just they had a run of that. And then they came back and they said they've looked at some things that they've seen in other states. So for example, when they talked about English language learners, the funding for that, do your costs go down over time? And there are some states that have a front load the resources put into ELL, and then you reduce as you go out. So they're like, do we want to do something like that? I'm not saying anything, not giving any value or ranking any of these kind of things, just to say these are the kind of things they're exploring. It's fascinating, having lived with the formula for a long time, listening to people talk about why we have low enrollment weighting and why we have high enrollment weighting. And they spent about an hour talking artfully about how that happened and why do we have that and what does it mean. And finally, somebody who'd been around for a very, very long time said it was all political. We had to get money to make sure that everybody was kind of held even when the new formula came into place. And so, as you know, the high enrollment weighting, low enrollment weighting, we get high enrollment weighting. Everybody either gets high or low, and we've been getting high enrollment weighting. But they started having conversations about, is there a difference between a small school district that's 2 miles, 10 miles outside of Topeka versus one that's a 500 square miles? So some states use a sparsity weighting, and you have to figure out how to redo that. And so they're just running a lot of these they're having their staff do different runs on what these things would look like. I think it's important to note that thing like low enrollment weighting, that's $250 some odd million that goes to about 200 school districts that have less than 1,600 kids. And so, though that's a disruptive conversation to have, as you can imagine from folks that are watching this, is how might you redo some of those kind of things. So that's going to be interesting to watch. A lot of the attention has been on at-risk and special education. And that's a legacy of what we've dealt with through the last few legislative sessions, where the legislature has raised more and more questions about why are we paying for high density at risk? What does that even mean? And how are we using that in a meaningful way when test scores aren't improving? Or you look at racial groups, and that's not improving. Why are we spending $500, $600 million on at risk when we're not seeing any results based on test scores? So I think that one of the things that I would note is that they're looking through a lot of different things to do. Special education, I'll talk about that a little bit more, but they are connecting and many of these issues into how can we see the benefit, very much of a return on investment kind of thing. How do we see the benefit of at-risk weighting? Like literally, we had a conversation, what's the benefit of low enrollment weighting? How is that, the question is being asked by Neiman Tula, how does that increase test scores? How are we improving achievement with low enrollment weighting? And it's kind of like, okay. So I would note one thing that I skipped here, and it's meaningful as we begin to have some of this conversation. On slide 4, I skipped over the official charge for the Education Task Force. This is directly from the statute, and item number 2, or labeled number 1, the second full paragraph in here, describes that they'll pursue the following goals for the school finance formula. The formula shall be reasonably calculated to have all students meet or exceed the ROSE capacities. The formula shall provide adequate, consistent, and reliable funding, and the formula shall provide meaningful accountability measures. So I think one thing to keep in mind is that 10 years ago, so the ROSE capacities, which came out of, I think, Tennessee, which are an articulation of skills that we want kids to learn, and are in some ways a perfect reflection of what you just described as the graduate here that you all talked about, is that achievement on test scores and those kinds of things is one of many measures of success. So there's going to be some interesting decision-making process as you go through to come up with a formula when every question you're asking is about how does this improve achievement, when your charge in statute is to look much more broadly at those kind of things, including graduation rates, including performance after graduation. All of those kinds of things are part of that conversation. So I just wanted to make sure and note that. Back on the themes from the task force meetings, they are utilizing their legislative research staff, and that's basically it. So they're having their staff come up with runs and projections on projects and on those kinds of things. And a couple things I would note, there have been a couple of issues that presentations on documents that have been made that have had some issues with them. For example, when there was a run on the distribution of state dollars and how they'd gone up over time, we saw a giant jump of about $500 million in 2015, 16, and that led to people scurrying around and figuring out what was going on and see how much it's going up. That's when the 20 mills was taken out of the school district's budget and shifted over to the state. So we just collect it, the state washes it, and then, I don't mean that literally, but the dollars go to the state. So instead of it showing up as school district dollars, it started showing up as state expenditures, went up $500 million. And it took like a week for people to figure out, oh, we didn't add $500 million, we changed how we counted it. Same thing at a certain points with CAPERS. When CAPERS was changed around and state wanted to be able to claim those expenditures. So we're dealing with those kinds of issues as we're putting things together, and that's part of the process and in general kind of working through them, but it's a little bit sometimes a little bit of a challenge. I think one of the issues that is important in doing this format and shocking to people on the committee, every single one of these things is tied together, and an impact on almost any weighting has an impact on other components in the formula. So if you take out any of these weightings and take those away, it impacts everybody's local option budget. And so every time you make a change, you may shift resources to a school district where they were getting a weighting, and you could end up getting less money, but your LOB would go down. All those kind of, everything moves at the same time, and it's very, very hard to make things, to make one small change without affecting everything. So the challenge of pulling this together, this last meeting was the first time anybody in kind of the leadership group on this committee said, I think we might be moving a little too quickly, because they've started saying, well, when we start to put things together, how do we want to do this? And they're getting a sense that this is going to be an incredibly challenging thing to pull together. So I'll be curious to see how it all plays out in the end. The last slide, I promise, I apologize. You all have had a long evening. On slide 8, where they may be headed in some ways, I think in the best case scenarios, there is a lot of focus. They spent time this last meeting talking about what do we all kind of agree on? Student focused, early childhood, student achievement, measurable outcomes, reading, and mental health were things that everybody agreed was what they wanted to do. Now, the student achievement, measurable outcomes, all those kind of things, all part of that. And in general, folks were talking about not being overly concerned about making changes. But I think as you try to do anything, you're going to come back to the complexity. I think the things that those of us that are watching this in the public education community, there's a strong sense from this committee that they don't believe the formula is working academically for promoted student achievement, and that it's also not financially sustainable. We're getting lots of comments about we keep investing all of these millions of dollars and test scores aren't improving. And unrefuted sometimes, that's the nature of the way this process is going, but that's out there. There is a very strong interest in modifying at risk. A couple of people in the committee have said we just need to get rid of at risk. Even with weightings, they say we need to know how a weighting helps achievement, and we don't want any dollars for weightings spent on administration, because that's not student achievement. We've got to, we're having to work through some of how to deal with a lot of this complexity. There is some conversation about rating and scoring that's come up in terms of we're going to start looking at higher achievers, lower achievers, and maybe that allows us to rank things and make choices about where we might want to spend dollars. Special education, the part of the conversations that have taken place are about going to a weighting instead of our current reimbursement model. There's some conversation about some places who have categories of special education needs, and kids are put into categories that have different funding rates as opposed to where we are. We've even actually said out loud, do we really need to use the least restrictive environment for children and getting special education services, which is an interesting concept to bring up after the while. And that's, all of those things are hanging out there. They're going to start getting into the at-risk. I would expect a lot of work on at-risk and special ed in the next 2 meetings, where there will be, I'm not sure they're going to eliminate at-risk weighting, but I would expect it to, what they may come up with will look very different. And special education, I'm not quite sure yet. So that's kind of where we are halfway through. It is, everybody there is very earnest. Everybody there is working hard, but there's also a lot of the legacy that we have of how people have talked about this formula and what they want to do with it there. Is still there. I would note, I think I've listened to every minute or attended every minute. We've only had vouchers were only mentioned one time. It's going to come up at some point in this conversation, but it's only been mentioned one time in all of the time that they've been meeting. So.
All right. It's a very dense topic and a very dense task that this group is embracing, which I think is reflected in the recap here. Thank you for trying to condense down hours of that conversation to a couple of slides and key points.
I have a question right about what he said. Do you mind if I ask? So,
go ahead.
You mentioned vouchers, and I just wanted to ask if you can expand on that a little bit. In what way are they referencing vouchers as a part of this, in the same context, in terms that they were discussing earlier in session, or something different?
It was one of like the February meeting, March, where they were going over all the weightings, and there was a conversation, part of the conversation from the chair was, what else do we want to hear about? Okay. What else do we want to look into? And somebody said, let's find out what states have good voucher programs. That was it. There's never been a report back on that, but sure. That's literally all that's been said.
Okay, thank
you. Yeah, I can jump in with one, but I'm looking to see somebody else's. Yep,
I have a pretty simple question. I'm wondering, Dr. Little, if you could just direct us to who some of the folks are on this task force that are from the Johnson County area. I see a couple of familiar names, but I'm wondering if there's any that aren't jumping out at me that you would want to call out, just so we, I think, know as board members who are the people in our own backyard who are at these tables.
Nikki McDonald, Representative McDonald, is the appointee of the House Minority Leader. Senator Gossage is from Eudora. Pat Petty is from Wyandotte County and also has part of Shawnee Mission School District. Corey Gibson, who's the urban superintendent, is DeSoto superintendent. And those are the voting members here. And then also in a non-voting status is Melissa Rooker, who is the appointment of the Children's Cabinet.
Thank you.
Thinking about within Shawnee Mission, equity is a priority of our district in ensuring that we have equitable distribution of resources across the district. And this task force, when I hear about the weightings, one of the things early on I thought this task force, at least for the general education formula, committed to was kind of adhering to the basic structure of the formula, which is used by about 40 other states, and it's this base funding plus weights for making sure additional resources are provided for kids, say, with disabilities or who are at risk or ELL or districts that have like large geographic areas versus, dense urban geographic kind of concerns. So we have this from the Education Commission of the states. I think they adopted those criteria that spoke to the issue of fairness and adequacy. Do we see that being kind of tied into what our state Supreme Court has already said is critical to a adequate and equitable funding formula? Are those pieces kind of playing in as they're talking about maybe redoing some of these weightings or eliminating some of these weightings, how they would adhere to the equity part of this plan?
Yeah, I would note equity is not in the official statutory charge to this task force, which I think is interesting, since that was one of the two, the adequacy and equity in the Gannon decision. It comes up, but I think that's a battle that's going to come when somebody starts putting on the table, let's do this with some of these weightings that are very specifically targeted to address questions of equity. So hasn't happened yet.
And the other part you kind of, I think, mentioned a little bit, we're maybe starting to hear different perspectives, but I don't know if it's an agree to disagree of committee members. But there are those who kind of talk about the current status of school funding and that 2023 is kind of that new baseline, that the Gannon funding, the total remedy really didn't kick into place until 2023. And we don't still quite have full funding for special education. So we're not quite there, right, with special ed funding. But in 2023, the total Gannon remedy kicked in. And so 2023 is our new year. Plus, we also had the disruption to learning from COVID,
right,
which affected learning globally. So if we talk about how we're looking at, we have this restoration of funding, so we're finally back up to square. So now we're kind of looking forward whether putting resources in is going to help with our kids' improvement in learning and strengthening those outcomes. And so I feel like there's that perspective, and then there's those who cast it a very different way. And I think you alluded to some of those, that we've put this money in and there's been no change in outcome, or outcomes have gotten worse. So I think there's this discrepancy about the perspective of the relationship between money. Does money matter? How much money's in there and how it's used? And
right.
It's like, I mean, those seem to be very two different perspectives. And one is really pressing to say we've put this money in and it's been, not been used well or effectively, and others who are saying, hang on, you just filled the hole. We're just now kind of getting closer to good. Let's get a little bit more for special ed, and we should be taking off with COVID behind us and closer to adequate resources.
Yeah, both of those voices are in the room, and
Okay.
they're doing what they've been doing for the last few years, and that's going to be how people in the middle here are going to deal with this on that committee will be very telling in terms of how that'll be addressed. But the two descriptors that you've laid out there are both present in each of these meetings.
Okay.
That was going to be my question, is are there people who don't have their minds made up already about this going on this committee? Because or this task force, it seems like if we want to paint it as there's people in this camp and people in this camp, we've all seen that play out a million times. Are there people who are in neither of those camps who are actually just really trying to make sure that the way that we fund education in Kansas produces the best outcomes for kids, which is
well, in
hopefully
general,
some of them.
there's in general kind of an open mind to consider things, and nothing's off the table. And I think the chair is willing to entertain all those kinds of things. There are very strongly held beliefs on here, and these are people that have been appointed to this committee for a reason, and so that's going to generate the outcome that it does. When it gets out to the wider universe, and it's part of a public policy, public funding conversation, the outcome could be very different, because in school finance, unlike anything else, the first thing every single elected member of the legislature is going to do is go look at a run and see what it does to their district. So,
Ask a question.
you can have a lot of philosophy The spreadsheets are going to dictate a lot.
Ideology,
about what
it
happens.
goes out the window when you see what it does in your own hometown.
Exactly.
Dr. Little, who are the two outside education groups that are not with legislative staff that have provided input?
It was the Commission on States, and I forget what the other one was at the top of my head.
Okay. And then the special education funding formula is separate, of course, from the overall formula. It's a separate statutory regulatory provision for how the State Board of Education should distribute special education funding. Are they talking about merging that into the main funding formula, or are they talking about addressing that in a specific way, or are they just indicating that they think special education funding and how we calculate it needs to be different?
It is on that list of the charges. It is the third item listed, make any changes that you may see necessary for special education. So they have authority to do that. And I think there is interest in doing that. We've seen, I mean, just as recently as this last session where the budget committee added $35 million and it got to the full committee and the whole conversation was about, we don't need to do this. If you count everybody's LOB, we're paying more than 92%, and the 35 million turned into 7. So that's the special ed is going to be part of what comes out of this process.
Well, and I'm concerned somewhat because they talk about accountability measures and there needing to be accountability measures for funding. And when we specifically talk about special education funding, every student has a fundamental right to a public education in the least restrictive environment. And the costs associated with that are, of course, going to be different than for students who do not perhaps have certain special education needs. But tying that specifically to the same accountability standards that we would have just across the board without consideration for our students' individual needs, that's not something that we should measure with regards to the fundamental right to be there in the first place. Like I see those interests being at odds. And I think sometimes that gets lost in the conversation about special education funding. And so I was curious, one, who the outside education groups were, who were speaking to this issue, and then two, what they were perhaps anticipating doing with special education funding. Because before Gannon, it seems like we've gone back and forth on funding. We either have general education funding and special education funding is shorted, and then a lawsuit comes to implement funding for special education, and then general education funding goes down while they increase funding to special education. And that isn't about, what are the motivations for that? That's just the practical reality of how funding has worked in Kansas. One pot goes down, families bring lawsuits, then that pot goes back up and the other one goes down. And so historically, it gives pause to hear the talk regarding accountability, the juxtaposition of that with special education being the key focus, and then the concerns with underfunding there. So I appreciate you being there. What would you recommend those of us who are engaged and concerned about this issue do in particular? Because it seems like during the regular session, we can submit testimony, we can send you in on behalf of the district to provide, the district's positions in our platform. But because this is a separate task force, what is the method for concerned folks to stay engaged and to communicate their desire to protect public education?
Well, on one level, I believe there were a variety of superintendent meetings last week, and KSDE, the Department of Education, was meeting with a variety of superintendent groups, and we're going to get feedback from superintendents. And then Frank Harwood's going to report back at the July meeting on what he's heard back. Nobody else has been invited to appear and comment. No public comment that I have heard anything about at this point.
If this is where the formula proposal is coming from for the next legislative session and is then presented to the K-12 Budget Committee as already formulated, then when would the public have had an opportunity to provide input on it during the drafting phase? Must one be invited in order to provide input? Yeah.
I kind of thought that's what the chair was doing, like this group was working to come up with a draft options or bills to be worked and heard in 2026. So would we have opportunity in 2026 as it's being worked and processed by legislators to weigh in?
Well, yes. I mean, there's going to be, if there's going to be, well, let me rephrase that. If there's going to be, there has to be a bill to do this, and there has to be hearings, and we know how that works sometimes, but there will be hearings on school finance formula. I think from their perspective, while there's some value to having, public comment day on the formula, and I wouldn't be surprised if we don't get that one of these last 4 months of the year, is that this is also the drafting. This would be like any other piece of legislation. If they're drafting something, you don't have to have public comment. Public's ability to comment comes when there's a hearing on it as actual proposed legislation. So that's kind of the rub here in terms of input. And, those of us that work in the area, we're all keeping in pretty constant contact and are making sure that everybody's informed of what's going on, for sure.
I appreciate that. I just didn't want people to be caught off guard by it since it's the off season, so to speak.
Yeah, it's pretty low profile. There's not a lot of people following it and their friends in the media and those kind of things.
All right, anyone else have questions? All right, thank you so much for following and keeping us up to date on this very critical work that will affect us immensely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Little.
Okay. We still have a meaty agenda to get through. So we have almost 30 consent items. And I'm just going to say that this is the time of year when we do some annual renewals, and some of these are larger expenditures. And so I'm going to, I think I'm going to look for a first and second on our consent items, and then look to you, Dr. Schumacher, to just provide a little bit of context, given the
Yes, glad to.
yeah, the
So
weight of
moved,
some of these.
Owsley.
Second, Westbrook.
All right, thank you. Efficient group.
Yeah, as you mentioned, this is an extensive list of consent items. However, there is nothing that I would describe as out of the ordinary. Many of these are our annual items, as you've mentioned, that come at this time of year as we prepare for the upcoming school year. As you are aware, our team thoroughly reviews each item and ensures that we comply with state and federal laws and/or statutes. Our practice is to provide you a memo describing in detail the request and then any associated supporting documents, which you'll see. There are some items that don't have a contract because we are basing the predicted cost off of historical data and team member expertise. And just to provide an example, 5.06, the purchasing of paper, I think is a pretty good example of that. We estimate that with a best guess, but of course we don't have a crystal ball and know exactly how much paper we're going to use. So again, these are annual consent items that we traditionally bring to you at this time.
Okay. Do we have any questions? All right. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right, thank you. Okay, now we have a number of discussion items, and scroll down here on my agenda. Action items, sorry, thank you. Action item 6.01, we have the Shawnee Mission West Orchestra and Choir trip.
Yeah, I do recommend approval of a trip with the expenditure not to exceed $279,109 for the Shawnee Mission West Orchestra and Choir students to travel to San Francisco, California, April 23rd through the 26th of 2026. There will be 3 district employees supervising approximately 160 kids. No district funds will be used for this trip. Each student may participate in fundraisers or use personal funds to support this learning opportunity.
And would we assume there might be some parents going along too?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, can I get a motion to approve?
Move approval, Hembry?
Thank you. Second?
Second, Garcia.
All right, questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right, our 6.02, our next action item, authorization of purchase of referee services.
Yeah, I recommend approval of an estimated total of $297,000 for the purchase of referee services from Arbiter Pay Trust account for the 25-26 school year. This is a budgeted annual expenditure. You do see in that supporting memo the predicted cost per school. This, of course, is the cost and the method in which we go about paying for officials for our athletic events.
Okay,
So moved, Owsley.
thank you. Second?
Second, Hembry.
All right, any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Okay. Item 6.03, authorization to purchase water utilities.
Yeah, there's 3 of these annual authorizations. This is the first of them. I recommend that the district purchase water utilities from Water District Number 1 for the fiscal year 25-26 with an estimated cost of $400,000 with final expenditures contingent upon water utility cost and the district's water usage. This expense will be funded with general operating funds.
All right, first, or motion to approve?
So moved, Owsley.
Thank you. Second?
Second, Hembry.
Okay, questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right, 6.04, authorization to purchase electric utilities.
Yeah, similar to the one before, I do recommend that the district purchase electric utilities from Evergy for the fiscal year 25-26 at an estimated cost of $7.2 million, although final expenditures are contingent upon market cost and the district's electricity usage. Sorry.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right.
Or second,
Okay.
whichever one I am.
All right, thank you.
I'm good with any.
Okay.
I like electricity in our schools.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Very
good.
excited to support this.
All right. Any questions?
In that memo, do we get to, do they teach our students the electric slide? Now, that's a song that's not played at homecomings and prom anymore. They don't know that one.
You're dating yourself.
I feel like I don't do that a lot here, but
That's the one dance I do know.
All right, demonstrations are welcome.
All right.
No, they're not.
All right. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries 6-0. Okay. 6.05, approval of agency contract for supplemental operations staffing.
Yeah, I recommend authorization of ATS Facility Services to provide supplemental custodial staffing for the 25-26 school year. This renewal will allow operations and maintenance to backfill open custodial positions with contracted employees. Contracting with ATS Facility Services for end-of-the-day cleaning services will help offset the 70-plus currently unfilled custodial positions. The total estimated cost of the proposed service agreement for the 25-26 school year would not exceed $2,476,000. Contracted labor costs will be paid with the general funds made available through unfilled positions within the custodial department. This is a general fund expense and allows and aligns with the Shawnee Mission School District Strategic Plan 6.2.3. To note, this is the 4th year that we'll be using this agency, and they do provide great service. To note also, we only use this service for second shift custodians, and I would say that the HR and O&M teams will continue to monitor these vacant positions this year and determine if this is the best approach for us moving forward.
And second shift is night.
Night, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move approval, Hembry.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Garcia.
All right. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right. 6.06, authorization to purchase natural gas.
Yep, similar to the ones before, that I recommend that the district purchase natural gas utilities from Symmetry Energy Solutions, LLC, at an estimated annual cost of $454,000, and Kansas Gas Service at an estimated annual amount of $243,000 for the fiscal year 25-26, with final expenditures contingent upon market cost and volume used by the district. This, again, is an expense funded by general operating funds.
All right. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second, Westbrook.
All right, any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ms. Borgman?
Yep, I chimed in.
Sorry,
Yes,
I
thank
missed
you.
you. Opposed?
No problem.
Motion carries 6-0. I feel like we should dedicate this meeting to Dr. Stubblefield and Mr. Knapp in particular.
They've been busy.
All right, item 6.07, yes. Authorization to purchase fuel for student transportation.
Yeah, so purchasing fuel for the student transportation from vendors Agriland FS, FNF Petroleum, Mansfield Energy, Ozark Mountain Energy, and World Fuel for the fiscal year 25-26 school year at an estimated combined amount of $600,000, although final fuel expenditures will be contingent upon fuel cost and district transportation needs. This expense will be funded with general operating and special education funds. This is in conjunction with our partner, DS Bus. We pay for the fuel, and so this is the authorization to do that.
All right, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved, Ousley.
Thank you, Mr. Westbrook. All right, any questions? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right, item 6.08, authorization of contract with Sunburst Workforce Advisors.
Okay, so this is a new one and a little bit different. I do recommend approval of the contract with Sunburst Workforce Advisors for the provision of nursing and supplemental school staffing on an as-needed basis for the 25-26 school year, including the extended school year program. Based on the projected need for one-to-one nursing and coverage for extended staff absences and vacancies, payment for certified, classified, and related services is estimated to not exceed $1,500,000. This will be paid from special education operating funds. To note here, previously the SPED team and the HR teams have had to work with between 13 and 15 different vendors to backfill these needs. Through their research and hard work, they've negotiated this contract to provide a sole source for all of our needs at no additional cost to the district. This new contract also eliminates buyout penalties that were previously very common and costly to the district. And this will also, of course, reduce the amount of man hours for our teams going forward. So very positive thing in my opinion.
Good. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move it. Westbrook.
Thank you. Second?
Second, Hembry.
All right, any questions? Glad we can make this, well, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you for bringing this one to our attention. It's helpful for next year. Item 6.09, approval of legal services.
Yep. I recommend for approval the purchase of legal services from McEnany, Van Cleve, and Phillips, PA, Mix O'Toole, LLC, Spencer Fain, LLP, Holston Sifkin, LLP, and Smithyman and Zakura Chartered. During the 25-26 school year, rates will be submitted to General Counsel for approval at any time there is a revision of the firm's standard rates. Invoices from all firms will be submitted to General Counsel and the Deputy Superintendent for review and final approval for payment. Our General Counsel, Ms. Rachel England, vets these outside counsel and assists in making these recommendations.
Okay. All right. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move. Westbrook.
Thank you. Second?
Second, Hembry.
Any questions? All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right, we got a couple more. Item 6.10, ratification of the 2025-26 professional negotiated agreement with NEA Shawnee Mission.
Not that the others weren't exciting, but these next few
I
definitely
know,
are.
yeah.
I recommend that the Board of Education ratify the professional negotiated agreement with NEA Shawnee Mission effective from July 1, 2025 through June 30th, 2026, increasing the salary schedule by 4% on the base. The P&A was ratified by professional employees on May 23rd, 2025. This provides an increase of 4.32% to 7.19% in the overall compensation package for certified employees. I would also like to acknowledge the negotiations team here, NEA Shawnee Mission team, Jill Johnson, Jay Sharbett, Nolan Lewis, Casey Orlick, and Amanda Jesse, And representing the board, Rachel England, Dr. Stubblefield, Dr. Higgins, Dave Ewers, and Laura LaHue. This team did an amazing job this year, navigating through a new hybrid format, discussing challenging topics, and ultimately coming to an agreement that benefits all of our professional employees. And I, for one, would like to thank each of them for their time and hard work.
We'll second that on behalf of the Board of Education. Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
Move approval, Hembry.
Second, Westbrook.
Thank you. Okay. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. And again, thank you for all the work to the entirety of the interest-based bargaining team. Okay, item 6.11, approval of school psychologist salary schedule.
Yeah, so maybe a quick note. So we have multiple employee groups. We have all of ours except for PATs. We just wrapped up them. We'll get to those to you June 23rd.
The parents as teachers?
Parents as teachers. So this is our second employee group that we're recommending tonight, the approval of the attached personnel policy handbook for July 1, 2025 to June 30th, 2026 between the Board of Education and the Shawnee Mission School District and our school psychologist, increasing the salary schedule by 4% on the base. This provides an increase of 4.17 to 7.13% in the overall compensation package for our school psychs.
All right, motion to approve.
So moved, Owsley.
Thank you. Second.
Second, Westbrook.
All right, any questions? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right, item 6.12, approval of classified salary schedule.
I recommend approval for increasing the 25-26 classified schedules 4.3% on the base. This provides an increase of 4.3% to 7.61 in the overall compensation package for classified employees. Updated handbooks for exempt and non-exempt classified employees are also included. I do wish to make note of the difference in the base compensation raise for classified employees. As you know, over the last few years, we've done a tremendous job of doing more in relation to compensation for classified employees. In 23-24, we reworked the classified scales, provided a base raise, and also added an additional $1 million in compensation. Last year, in addition to the base, you also approved another $1 million in additional compensation. You will note that my recommendation this year is to increase the classified employee base salary by 4.3% as compared to 4% for certified employees. What should be noted is that the certified staff negotiated an additional 2 leave days, which equates to that range that you just approved for them, that 4.32 to 7.19%. As we assess the compensation package for classified employees, we believed it was in the best interest of the district and the individual employees to provide the available resources to the base rather than to additional leave days.
Okay. Thank you for that. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move approval, Garcia.
Great. Second?
I'll second, and I have a question.
Okay.
So my question is, I appreciate the explanation on that. And then one of the reasons that it's different, not only because NEA negotiated 4% in the 2 days as opposed to 4.3% in the not days, but that we were talking about operations and maintenance needing to be able to be in the building to do work on the buildings, even on days when either school is out or like if a teacher is out, they can call a sub. And so I just wanted to clarify that I was understanding that correctly and to ask the question so that other people could hear that that was an answer that you had provided me.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification. That's 100% right. NEA negotiated those additional days, and the big difference is we have those subs who can continue the learning environment in spite of a teacher taking that time. That can't be said for our classified employees. There's still that important work to be done, and so we made that decision to not add those leave days because of that reason.
Okay, thank you.
All right. If there are no other questions, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. And our final action item today is 6.13, approval of administrative contracts for 2025-26.
Yeah, last one, and there'll be a little bit of flavor at the end just for explanation. I recommend approval of administrators to receive a 4.1% increase in their 25-26 base salary, except in cases of market-based adjustments as appropriate. This provides an increase of 3.94% in the overall compensation package for administrators over the previous year. The updated leave and benefits manual for administrators is also included. To note, there's obviously a slight difference in our recommendation for administrative-based compensation and certified employees. Again, our certified employees did negotiate those additional leave days, which equates to that additional 0.32%. Our recommendation is to provide the 4% base increase for most administrators while not providing them any additional leave days. So that is a difference there. Again, we believe this is in the best interest of the district. And I know you join me in celebrating the tremendous administrative team that we have in the Shawnee Mission School District, and it's important to stay competitive with all of our employee groups, including our administrators.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move approval, Garcia.
Thank you. Second?
Second, Ousley.
Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I think I heard you, Ms. Borgman. I'm going to assume
Yes.
those, yes?
Aye,
And
aye.
sorry, okay. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right, I appreciate all the work that was done to really recognize all of our employees and to maximize what we can and have at our hand to compensate all of you amazing people that help educate our children. So thank you for that. That's a big action item.
A lot.
Little round of applause here.
Yeah.
Okay, that brings us to board comments. Yes, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you. Yeah, what a good meeting. Yes, happy Pride. I'm grateful for a school district that, proves or puts the money where their mouth is when it talks about including all students of every kind in their buildings and their classrooms. We know that students who have a strong sense of belonging learn and achieve in the classroom, and that's just so important right now. That's why we're here. So I know I want to recommit myself to supporting those efforts across the school district, so just wanted to make that a point. Next, I do want to give a shout out. I mentioned this, or I said something at the Project Home event that we had about a month ago, and now that graduation in the school year has ended, I said something at Project Home. I said, I hate the end of the year because of retirements. They make me sad. I'm grateful for their time, but I hate to see people go. So I did want to give a shout out to Mrs. Linda James. I'm going to try to say this without absolutely losing it, but it's been referenced before. She was on the podcast. 42, 43 years in Shawnee Mission is so significant. The impact that she's had, not just on the Blue Jacket Flint community, but also across the North feeder pattern, has been something so significant for so long. Their family history is, her father, Merlin Gish, was a coach and teacher in the district for 37 years. Linda's daughter is a teacher in the district as well for a number of years now, I think 8. So if you do the math, that's pushing 90 years of one family committing themselves to educating and supporting and caring for and loving on kids for, almost 100 years. And by the time Elizabeth, or Zibby is her nickname, and that's what we all know her by, is halfway through her time in Shawnee Mission, their family will have reached 100 years of educating kids in this community. And I experienced just so much gratitude for her time. She was a mentor to so many, a mentor to my mom. She wasn't even my teacher. And this is how I feel about her, but I know that I speak for so many in the North community when I express my utmost respect and gratitude for her time in this school district. I mean, she is somebody that probably would still be teaching if not her daughter announced that she was pregnant this year and immediately she retired. But her commitment to the values of the entire school district and significantly to the North community has been so powerful to me and my family, but to also so many across our community. And I'm just grateful for her, teachers like her. And I recognize why I'm so sad is because we always hope that our students experience the best have the best experience in our classrooms, and with her in front of students, that was always what happened. And when that goes, it's just a challenge for me to reconcile it. Sometimes I hate the idea that she's leaving us. She'll still be around. Her family will continue to teach in our community, and I think that's so special. I mean, I haven't even referenced that she has a son who teaches in the metro as well. So what is just a wonderful, resounding experience that they've all provided to so many across the school district. I mean, talk about one Shawnee mission, talk about all in. I mean, the Gish James family has been here for nearly 100 years and will continue to be here, and that legacy is just so important, and I wanted to take this time to recognize her and her exceptional leadership in our community, and just wanted to say thank you. And of course, there are many that were retiring as well with very similar numbers, actually, to 40-odd years. Mr. Juan was at East Antioch for almost, I think, a number of years, also a North grad. But I'm grateful. I'm reminded end of the year is so important, so fun, but it's also so sad sometimes when our wonderful educators retire and go off into their next thing, and not even just our educators, but our professionals across the district. So I just want to express my deepest gratitude to everybody who's left their mark and their impact and on our students' families across the district for a number of generations. And I want to directly thank you, Linda James, for everything. And I'm eternally grateful. So thank you, and I will pass it along to somebody else. So thank you.
Yes, Ms. Ousley.
I don't want to follow that.
Okay, we could conclude our
So, but
board
I'm
is-
going
our
to
board
because I'm
meeting is
salty.
adjourned.
No, hold on just a
All
second,
right.
because earlier this evening we heard about how there's discussions about money funding the classroom, and then we just voted on a bunch of stuff, including electric payments, utility payments, transportation payments, gas payments, all of these things that without our children do not receive the quality public education that we
Keeping the lights
provide.
on.
And so I am just noting that while there may be a disconnect for people on the outside as to why it's so important for us to pay the electric bill, everything we do at the dais goes back to educating a child holistically. So, I mean, there's some on here that were obvious to that, but some of the others might need it to have been pointed out. So I appreciate Mario's comments, but I just really wanted to get.
I like that.
Thank you.
All right.
I
Yes,
have
Mr.
one,
Osborne.
I'd like to make two quick comments. One addition to what Ms. Osley has just said. I think that's right. This is a culminating meeting, but we are working on budgets for next year, and this process of authorizing expenditures, was preceded by a very arduous budget-making process. So what we authorized tonight was something that we approved in our budget. I also would like to shout out recognition for a teacher. Some of you may have noticed Paul Rudd and Jason Sudeikis were in town a week or so ago to celebrate the Big Slick event at Children's Mercy, and they are both students, I'm proud to say, of Shawnee Mission, specifically Shawnee Mission West. And while Paul was here, he took special efforts to schedule a flight to come in town early enough to meet with his teacher, Sally Shipley, who taught him at Shawnee Mission West. Sally is now in a retirement community, and it made her day, her week, for Paul to come in and spend a couple of hours with her. And he brought to her not pictures of Hollywood stars, but memorabilia from their time together at Shawnee Mission West, and spent a couple of hours talking about it. It all starts with a teacher, and who knows what kind of inspiration in a classroom can lead to accomplishments like that, whether they're heralded by celebrities or unheralded by people who simply go, become good citizens, get good work, raise good families, and pay taxes to support our schools. So it's really important for us to remember what this is all about. As we pay the electric bill, we're really just trying to make sure kids can learn and grow, and I'm proud to be part of it.
All right. Am I concluding our meeting? Okay. Meeting is adjourned, and we'll see you on June 23rd. Thank you, everybody.